Evening, and welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, June 28, 2022, and we're literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens here, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's begin by welcoming anchor Daniel Molloy. Daniel is Grants and Individual Gifts Manager at Pride Lines, a direct service LGBTQ plus youth and community nonprofit organization in Miami and Miami Beach. Daniel holds a Master's of International Affairs degree and brings a global public affairs and policy perspective to his work at Pride Lines, where he is tasked as the Fundraising and Development Director. He is currently spearheading Pride Line's third annual Colors of the Rainbow social media fundraising campaign. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. This year, our annual Colors of the Rainbow will highlight Pride Line's long-standing commitment to serving South Florida's LGBTQ plus community as we celebrate our 40th anniversary. It's a month-long social media fundraiser with a goal of $100,000 that starts this Friday, July 1st. Each and every dollar raised goes to Pride Line's life-changing and often life-saving programs and services for LGBTQ youth and community most in need and at risk. Please visit our website to learn more about how you can support our campaign at www.pridelines.org/colors-rainbow. Let's welcome anchor Glen Weinzimer. Glen is the founder of the Smart Ride, an annual 2-day, 165-mile bicycle ride from Miami to Key West. The Smart Ride has raised and returned over $13.9 million to AIDS HIV service organizations across Florida in the last 18 years. What makes Smart Ride unique is that 100% of every dollar raised by participants are guaranteed to go back to services in education and care. Glen also owns Bona Italian restaurant in the heart of Wilton Manors. Bona Italian holds weekly Gift Back Mondays with 10% of all proceeds returned to local charities. In the past 4.5 years, Bona has raised almost $50,000 to help local organizations. Welcome, Glen.
Thank you, Daniel. And this year will be your first year on the Smart Ride, won't it?
That's correct.
Yeah. And did you know that your
Wait, seriously? Is that true? Oh,
yes.
Great.
He even came to one of our last training events.
Oh, great.
And your organization, Pride Lines, has received over $1 million from us since it joined and became participating in the event. So we really admire the work that they do with youth, especially with youth that have been disenfranchised and stuff. But Smart Ride is coming up. That's why I'm wearing my shirt to brand myself.
I thought you were trying to show your breast off.
I'm not as forward, but okay, a little bit. But Smart Ride's coming up this November, and we're so excited. This will be our 19th year, and we're looking to make a difference this year in a different way with so much that's going on in our state right now. That it's important that we bring.
Wait, there's something going on in Florida?
Yeah, in Florida, yeah. There's a whole anti-trans thing, and there's the Don't Say Gay thing and the Disney thing. Yeah. Anyway, all of that having been said, we're looking forward to bringing people together as part of our community to make a difference and realize the power of our numbers.
Excellent.
Great. I'll be breaking my bike out.
That's right. All right. Let's welcome anchor Anthony Linzalone. Anthony is a born and raised New Yorker like me. New Yorker. He worked as a celebrity stylist to the rich and famous, worked as a model and actor, and has worked internationally in all fields. Anthony now has been retired for 4 years in Fort Lauderdale, except for some local theater here in South Florida. Welcome, Anthony.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America, diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here we are, the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, June 28th.
I just love how he says queer.
I know.
I love that. All right, let's begin with queering up the road to Stonewall. Today in history, the Stonewall riots begin, and it changed the world. Watch this.
Everything society could take away from you had already taken away from them. This was their home. Somebody threw something at the door. Ruckus started. Police came out of the door chasing somebody. Then they went inside because they felt endangered. The police barricaded themselves inside the bar. Basically, all hell broke loose.
By the time police reinforcements arrived, Christopher Street had filled with several hundred people.
Police came out. People dispersed. People ran down that street. They ran up various other streets, Bleecker Street, Gay Street. They just were all over here. It was one of the greatest nights in the history for gay people.
The LGBTQ plus civil rights movement developed right alongside the greater civil rights movement. As early as the mid-1940s, gay and lesbian groups were organizing to fight for equality. Things reached a boiling point in the early hours of Saturday, June 28, 1969, when police raided the Stonewall Inn just after midnight. Alcohol was confiscated, and those who were dressed, quote, masquerading as a member of the opposite sex, end quote, and that is how New York law described it, were arrested. Witnesses say that police began to rough up a woman dressed in men's clothing, thought to be Storme Delaverie, and that's when the gathered crowd turned on the police. When they found out what was happening, activists Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera made their way to the inn to help lead in the resistance. Through the following week, protests and fights with law enforcement continued outside the mafia-run bar. A year later, the Christopher Street Liberation March, which today is New York Pride Parade, was held on the anniversary of the riots. And gay pride, as we know it, was born in the world.
I think this is pretty groundbreaking, but my first question is, were you actually there until recounting the story, or were you actually reading from the teleprompter?
Yeah, this comes from the man who is 7 days older than me.
That's true.
Yeah.
But, I was in a more protective environment. They just let me out wandering around. I think that what happened then is extremely groundbreaking. And what's scary is what we're going through right now and how history can repeat itself. And we'll talk, I'm sure, during this show about all those other issues, but it is truly, just think of how the world has changed, and by that action, what has snowballed down to where we are today, good and bad.
Mm-hmm. I think we're in an interesting situation in that, along with this anniversary, the National Park Service, they've declared Stonewall Inn as a national monument for the LGBTQ community, and on Saturday they had a ceremonial groundbreaking celebration of the National Park Service's LGBTQ Visitor Center for the National Park at Stonewall, the first of its kind in the United States, and I believe the first of its kind in the entire world. So what's going on in New York for LGBT community is really quite great.
It really is a sense of pride when you celebrate gay pride in New York City. And I have to say that group of people were very brave. It was amazing. It must have been the most scary night they've ever experienced. And they did change the world from that.
Yeah, they did change the world. A lot of people do not realize when you're in your 20s and a millennial, you might not know, I'm only playing with you, but you might not know, when we watched...
That's a lawsuit start.
So, yeah, when Sao Paulo last weekend, the weekend before, had 4 million people come to their gay pride parade in Sao Paulo, or what happened in London, or what happened earlier in the month in Rome, every one of those events are tagged to a single moment in world history. June 28th, 1969, on Christopher Street in New York City. That was the spark moment for the entire planet, and every gay community in large cities, small cities, countries, states, everyone has the place of thanks of that moment at the Stonewall Inn, which I think is really, really incredible and will never be forgotten.
Well, to your point, Al, I mean, it's LGBTQ history 101. And as a community, I think we need to remember our history. And it's also safe to say that New York is a different place. It's.
Right. Well, we're going to continue on talking about some civil rights.
Next, Queer Up, LGBTQ plus civil rights. Never-repealed laws banning same-sex marriage and sodomy are now a ticking time bomb. The Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade has rocked the nation. The country is even more concerned after Justice Clarence Thomas stated that the court plans to overturn the cases that allow for the right to contraception, the right for same-sex couples to marry, and the case that overturned sodomy laws. Should the Supreme Court overturn Lawrence v. Texas, laws that are still on the books in many states would again take effect, making consensual sex between adults of the same sex illegal. States where these laws still exist are Alabama, Idaho, Kansas, Michigan, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Texas, Utah, Louisiana, and also here in Florida.
Shocking. Let's do a quick history lesson. Lawrence v. Texas, once upon a time, homosexual intercourse was illegal in the United States, not forced on a federal level, but on a state level. And states made the decision that homosexual interaction, sexual activity was flatly illegal, and hence the sodomy laws. It was not until Lawrence v. Texas that the Supreme Court said, we're taking this out of the state hand to make a federal policy based on the constitutional right to privacy, that sodomy, and specifically the challenge case of Lawrence in Texas, made state laws against who you slept with, who you were with in your bedroom, made it illegal. Interesting, it's the exact same justification reversal of what we have watched this week in the Supreme Court. The exact same standard has been reversed. The other thing that I think is really important in this moment is Justice Thomas has basically scared the nation. And he has scared the nation because he is saying that the same kind of trigger laws that we're watching going into effect on abortion and women's right to choose is exactly the laws that are sitting on the books that relate to gay marriage and relate to sodomy. In many of these states that you've just mentioned, including Florida, they never eliminated the law. The Supreme Court's decision just stopped the enforcement of the law, which means if the Supreme Court reverses instantaneously like a trigger, the law against sodomy goes back into effect. That's why this is so scary. That's exactly what we watched over the weekend on women's rights on Roe v. Wade. The law still existed in states with triggers to implement the enforcement of the abolition of a woman's right to choose instantaneously. And these same laws are sitting there waiting for the Supreme Court to decide, likely in a 5-4 decision, because we'll get Roberts to say, wait, gay marriage is either nullified or sodomy is nullified or the kind of contraception. All three of those challenges put out by Clarence Thomas. Very scary.
Yeah, and I can't agree with you more because the scariest part is that it was settled law for so many people that most cities and states and just said, oh, don't worry about it. Those laws are there. Why take up our time during one of our sessions to nullify some of these old sodomy laws or anything else? And the fact that it can instantaneously reemerge as law, like that, just my head can't wrap around that's okay now. Like that there is no progression in it. We go right back to when the law was instituted, where people weren't as exposed to the things they are now. I think Clarence Thomas in some ways did us a favor by saying what he did, because it's activating people into a fear mode that says, I need to get out there and I need to speak up and I need to be heard, because this could happen. I mean, it is so easily, and we just saw it happen.
That's a super interesting point. And I also think that we find the intersection of many things that we weren't completely clear on. The former president of the United States, we have learned now, has basically committed an attempted coup against the democracy of the United States government. And there was this whole circle of people, inner circle, outer circle, House representatives, senators, that supported this and now are flushed out of why would they continue to support Donald Trump when he tried to commit a coup against the United States? The question's been answered. Because they get this. We don't care so much about the radical craziness of Donald Trump. What we get is the 3 Supreme Court nominations. And then we get this, and then we get this, and we get this. And they have proven over the last 5 years that they're very much more adept than the Democratic point of view of being devoted to what you're trying to get. They've been much more devoted to it. And that's your point. Yes, they flushed it out. And Clarence Thomas has helped flush out why they continue to support Donald Trump, because they got what they wanted. 3 Supreme Court nominations.
And so many people thought, well, that would never happen. I don't know how many times I heard when I said, we're in trouble. This is very much, and we talked about this, like Nazi Germany. Like, these are all, like, these are clear things that are happening.
Sure.
And we go, oh, it won't be that bad. It won't happen. He'll never do that. This is the 21st century, whatever. And you're like, okay, there's some great memes going around right now about that. I warned you when you told me I was crazy in 2016. How do you feel right now?
Yeah.
Because it happened.
Yeah. I wish we would hear from the log cabin Republicans. Where are you? We would love to hear from you. Call us up. We'll have you on this show. Come. We want to hear you, because you've been saying for 5 years, Trump is the most LGBT embracing president in history. In history. And look what he delivered. 3 Supreme Court nominations that are as radical as all get out. And they're going to get what they are going to get. Yeah. Abolition of women's rights, potentially abolition, if you believe Thomas, abolition of contraception and your choices of contraception, and how we're going to police you, both in terms of your contraception, far beyond abortion, and who you're sleeping with in the bedroom and who you can be married to. Now, the one thing that is confusing to me is why, if they're going to do this, we don't return back to the privacy decision by the Supreme Court in 1967 that said a black man could marry a white woman. I'm a little confused. We're probably going to talk about that in the show, so we shouldn't do that. Glenn, let's move on.
Let's move on.
Something a little lighter.
All right, well, it's me, so it'll be a little lighter. Okay, let's queer up entertainment.
Oh, this won't be lighter.
Whoopi on Justice Thomas, quote, "You better hope they don't come for you," end quote. The ladies at The View have a lot to say about the recent Roe versus Wade decision. While Sunny admitted that she is a person of faith and she is very against abortion, she also feels that the courts could not make a decision based on faith. Whoopi echoed the sentiment of many who have stated that Loving versus Virginia was also based on the 14th Amendment and was decided in the same way as the cases Justice Clarence Thomas has said he hopes to overturn. Watch this.
Very pro-life. I've never been anti-life. I want people to have the lives they want, but I don't want to force anybody. I don't want anybody coming in my house telling me how to raise my daughter and what she needs, because they don't know. I appreciate everybody's religion, but I do not subscribe to your religion. I don't ask you to subscribe to mine, and you do not have the right, based on your religious beliefs, to tell me, because what's next, as Clarence Thomas is signaling, they would like to get rid of contraception. Do you understand, sir? No, because you don't have to use it.
But that's crazy.
They don't have to use it.
Everything's on the menu now. Contraception's on the menu. Gay marriage is now probably going to be overturned. Affirmative action is no more.
We were not in the Constitution either.
Well,
we were not even people
he is
in the
saying
Constitution.
nothing is precedent
And
anymore.
Well,
Wait,
you
wait,
better
but
hope
Clarence-
that they don't come for you, Clarence, and say you should not be married to your wife who happens to be white. Because they will move that. And you better hope that nobody says, well, you're not in the Constitution, you're back to being a quarter
We're
of a
back to the
person.
50s.
Because that's not going to work either.
Okay, Whoopi, let's queer up the worldview.
Well, no, we're going to talk about this just a little bit. You want to?
I wanted to jump in. This whole my body, my choice when it came to vaccines, but it's right now, my body, my choice. If you're a woman, there is no such thing as my body, my choice.
Mm-hmm.
The government is going to tell you what you can do. And that takes us back to just like when we were born.
Yeah. Oh my God, we have to go that far back?
We have to go that far back. But the other thing that she said there was about contraception. Today I was actually reading an article about the over-the-counter day after pill is actually hard to get right now because everyone is hoarding it just in case. And a lot of it, even online, if you go to some of the CVS's and those things, you can't get it till July, and it's only available by mail.
One of the things that's interesting to me on Friday, I kind of just turned red. I just got so angry about it. And I was really I was angry at myself because I was so embarrassed. This has been looming. We've known for 3 months that this is coming. I didn't prepare for it to wash over me the way it did on Friday. I really didn't. When it hit, I realized, and especially when Thomas's supporting opinion came out of what he said in the justification of it, of not even getting the Chief Justice to say it, but 5-4. That's what Donald Trump has brought the Supreme Court. I was angry at myself of not paying closer attention to this. Is the gay community supporting women's rights in the way that we should have leading up to this? At least voicing over and over and over and over again that we have the same interest that women have, that Black people have, that Latinos have, that trans has. There was guilt. And then second, when I went after Thomas very loudly, I posted, and I got thousands of comments over the weekend and embracements in social media, and I didn't do it for that reason, but I did. But one of the things that really stood out to me was all of the haters on my post that said, calm down, boy, or clutching your pearls too hard, and on and on and on. And, it makes me angry all over again because Whoopi Goldberg's point is an absolute bullseye. This justification of that there should not be federal protection from a constitutional standpoint, it should be done on the states. If we did that, there would not be a United States of America today. The Union would have broken up. When the Founding Fathers created the Constitution, and for 200 plus years, every right that has been extended has come from a justification of federalism in our Constitution, not in states' rights. When the Founding Fathers, God bless them, they created probably the greatest document ever written in human history. But that when they said all men are created equal, they didn't mean that. They meant white men. They did not mean women. They did not mean Black people. They did not mean Latino people. God forbid did they mean gay people. Mm-hmm. And all of the interpretations of rights that we got were extended from the universal idea that all men are created equal and you have rights to privacy. And the courts for 100 years have continued to expand that. And now we have radical justices appointed by a radical president in one term that's changed everything in America. Everything changed.
Well, right, Al. I mean, I think it's also important to remember it's not just Donald Trump's enduring legacy. It's also George W. Bush and his father.
Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020.
All right, Anthony, now we'll come to you. Sorry.
Okay, let's clear up the worldview. More than 300 LGBTQ plus activists released in Istanbul after being arrested for Pride demonstrations. District governors in 2 popular districts in Istanbul outlawed all LGBTQ plus events last week, saying it was for the safety and to prevent crime. When people celebrated Pride anyways this past Sunday, organizers of the Istanbul Pride event said that over 360 people were arrested. Chaos GL, which is a LGBTQ plus rights advocacy group, said that all of those who had been detained were released on Monday.
I've just come back from Istanbul. I was in
This
Istanbul, and no, I wasn't there for Pride, but I was there in May. And Istanbul is a magnificent city. I love Turkey, but it's not a great place to be gay. It's not a great place to be LGBT. And what is sad is, when I read this story and what happened to Istanbul Pride on Sunday, what is sad is 8 years ago, it was very different in Turkey, and it was very different in Istanbul for Istanbul Pride. What happened is Turkey has a strong man come to power who was named Donald Trump. Oh, wait. No, maybe I got the names wrong of the leader of Turkey, but he is the one that has rammed this down, a moderately progressive nation, Arabic embracing, but he is what's created this, and he created hate. And it's really a model to watch, both in terms of the combination of church, not evangelical, but from Muslim evangelical, and political leadership that says you are less than and we're going to other you. And that's what happens in Istanbul over the weekend. It's a terrible
And I,
shame.
like you, was there probably 10 years ago, and it wasn't the most open society to be LGBT, but it wasn't necessarily a place that was feeding hate in our direction. It was sort of just don't talk about it more so than anything else. And their former prime minister, he was welcoming to it. He allowed for them to have the Pride festivals, and now it's just
Isn't
scary
it
what's happening.
eerily
Yes.
similar to America 10 years ago?
Exactly.
We had President Obama 10 years ago.
Yes.
There's a lot of things changing.
Right. We
Yes.
had just gotten a marriage approved.
Yeah.
Yep.
15.
I was in Istanbul probably about 2012, 10 years ago. It was very gay friendly. But in 2014, they had a gay pride parade with over 100,000 people, spectators. And in 2015, after this new prime minister came in, tear gas, water bombs, they stopped the whole thing and banned it.
And that was the year Donald Trump was elected in Turkey. I keep making
You
this
got it.
mistake.
Okay, you know
I
what?
gotta
Just
stop.
because we need to move on. Okay. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ+, always have to catch my breath after that, religious live broadcasts in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 Eastern. Watch this.
This is Orlando Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of Safeguarding American Values for Everyone, also known as SAVE, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We need Orlando more than ever. Well, now we are going to finish tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News.
LGBTQ plus Flash News. Billionaire Peter Thiel backing GOP Senate candidate who wants to repeal his gay marriage. Gay billionaire Peter Thiel is the former mentor and boss of Thiel Foundation President Blake Masters, who is running for a U.S. Senate seat representing Arizona. Masters may have the backing of Thiel, but he apparently has no issue speaking out against his mentor's marriage. At an event in February, Masters said, quote, "Marriage is an institution that goes back thousands of years, and it has a point. The point is procreation and creating children," end quote. He was very clear that he felt that this applied to his friend, Peter Thiel, saying, quote, "I went to his wedding like you know. I'm it was great. I wish him well. I don't think the Supreme Court should have decided that case that way. Marriage is between a man and a woman, end quote. This just blows my mind. I don't know who I'm angrier at. The fact that this billionaire is supporting this guy who doesn't believe in the rights of the person that he went to his wedding. I can't say anything more than that. Just.
Well, you can say money buys them. What else? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Love is love. Who was he to declare? It's only between a man and a woman.
Queer billionaire. I love to say that, by the way. I'm very happy about that. Queer billionaire. Please read Supreme Court Justice's ascending opinion that Thomas said first. And second, I was in a marketing program where a very smart marketer once told me that you can find a market for anyone for anything. And the market for Masters, or rather, the market for Thiel and Masters reminds me of that adage, roaches for raid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also important to remember that majority opinion is not that. It's not within.
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus flash news. Carl Nassib matches 100,000 Trevor Project donation. Last year, during Pride Month, former Las Vegas Raiders player Carl Nassib came out of the closet as gay in Instagram and donated $100,000 to the Trevor Project to help fight LGBTQ plus youth suicide. This year, he may be a free agent in the NFL, but he has continued his new tradition of helping the community that he is now a part of. Watch this.
Hey everybody, it's Carl Nassib. I'm here in beautiful New York City. I want to wish everybody a happy Pride Month. I also want to remind people why Pride is important to me. Out there right now, there's a kid saying that I would rather be dead than be gay. And that's why I'm partnering again with the Trevor Project and matching all donations up to $100,000. I really hope you guys join me in supporting this awesome organization and supporting these young kids. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Pride Month, and thank you very much.
All right, well, I'm waiting for his Netflix special.
He's beautiful, so I just have to start with that because, whatever. I think it's fantastic that he's taking this money and giving it to the Trevor Project, but more importantly, normalizing that behavior within a macho sport. Those guys we don't want to talk about that. That's not us. And the fact that he's doing that openly is great for our entire community.
Oh, he has a new fan in me. I will be watching him also.
Yes. There's a lot of gay men at the show tonight. I don't know if we know this. There's a lot of gay men. One of the things that's interesting to me, the reason I love the challenge is, first, he comes from an area that we don't pay as much attention to in LGBT, which is sports. Yes. And especially professional athletes and gay professional athletes in representing, because it's a tough field for LGBT.
Which is why I didn't get into it.
Yeah, that's probably not the only reason, by the way, probably not the only reason. And then the other thing that I think is really important is in Pride Month, one of the silent calls that I didn't hear a lot about in this Pride Month is organizations that deal with LGBTQ youth. While we're focusing on our whoppers and tops and bottoms and all of the other rainbow capitalism we saw this month, we have organizations like Pride Lines, for example, that stand up for young people. And I love his call out because Trevor Project is so incredibly important. They're doing such an incredible job for such an important issue and in LGBT. And gosh, you should just be completely proud of that message that you did and what you're doing in helping support Trevor Project. Well, next in LGBTQ plus flash news, Judge Greg Mathis has a surprising message for his closeted gay son on his new show. Judge Mathis is the third longest running court show, having been on the air since 1999. Now he has a new reality show on E! Called Mathis Family Members, where he recently had a conversation with his son, Greg Jr., and his son's boyfriend, Elliot. When the judge asked his son what he would reply if asked if he was gay, Greg Jr. instantly said, no explaining, quote, as accepting as you all have been, the reality is that there's people that hate us for that, end quote. The judge tells Greg Jr. that he should never feel that way. Greg Jr. says he would be afraid that his coming out would be bad for the judge's career, and Judge Mathis replies, quote, "Thinking that it would affect me negatively is the direct opposite. If you're homophobic, I don't want you to watch my show. If you're a bigoted racist, I don't want you to watch my show," end quote. You know, his comments, while I'm not a fan of the judge shows on television, his comments are literally what especially gay men want to hear and have strived for their entire lives, of having their father voice support for them unconditional. It's almost unconditionally what gay men want in their coming out experience, in embracement from their father.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we need to elevate voices like that, as opposed to all the hateful voices that are currently occupying, airtime.
I think what's especially poignant about this is that he is a black man speaking to his black son in a community where stigma is such a big deal, where people won't come out of the closet because of fear of their family and being rejected by the church and their friends and their neighbors. So kudos to him for not just embracing his son, but embracing the LGBT community.
Oh, yes. He set a wonderful example. He reminds me of my dad. That's all I can say.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Your dad's black?
No, my dad's not black. But he's very supportive. Okay. LGBTQ plus flash news. Right-wing news anchor freaks out over a pride flag. Queer News Tonight has repeatedly reported on the shenanigans of AT&T and created One America News, or ONA, the ultra-right-wing Trump idolaters at ONA frequently get upset about the fake pandemic and are the terrors of gay pride. OAN anchor Allison Steinberg recently posted a video on her Instagram where she appears to lose control over the sight of a pride flag being displayed in Huntington Beach, California. Watch this.
To San Diego, and guess what I came home to be greeted with? This fucking bullshit. What the hell is that? Huntington Beach is the town of good old-fashioned, hardworking American people. The people that worked all through the COVID lockdowns. Yes, that's right. Huntington Beach never shut down through any of the COVID nonsense fuckery. And now we're peddling this garbage? What the hell is this? The only flag that's together is that American flag. This is a disgrace to our city, and it should be taken down immediately. Whoever the hell is running this town needs to be fired. Make America great again. Make Huntington Beach great.
Oh my, she's a little vulgar, but I won't pass a comment on that. She called COVID nonsense. Really? Come on. Far as I can say is she's a very angry woman.
Yes.
Where is the love?
Yeah, there seems to be some anger there. It's, her overwhelming observation about Huntington Beach represents good old-fashioned thinking. There has nothing been old-fashioned in Southern California in about 75 years. So I don't know where you green screened that in for OAN, but it certainly wasn't Huntington Beach, California.
Echoing the level of just no comment. I mean, what does one say to that?
Well, it's a level of stupidity that you think, how could you possibly make these statements? And Huntington Beach is a very progressive area. I've been there. There is nothing about Huntington Beach. It was a unanimous decision by their local community to actually raise the flag, not just there, but like in 3 or 4 other locations within Huntington Beach to recognize Pride Month.
Fort Lauderdale could be a sister city to Huntington Beach.
Correct. All right. Let's catch up with LGBTQ plus flash news. Country star T.J. Osborne attends Nashville Pride. Last February, T.J. Osborne of the Brothers of Osborne country music group came out of the closet. This past weekend, T.J. attended Nashville Pride with his boyfriend, Abby Ventura, where he was the Grand Marshal of the Pride Parade. On Instagram, he posted, quote, "It was an honor to be the Grand Marshal at this year's Nashville Pride Festival. Thanks to all my friends who came out and supported me," end quote. I think it's wonderful. I mean, Nashville is still the South, and again, he's a great person doing something. I just love that. You know, I was once a Grand Marshal, and it's quite an honor. So good for him. I got to ride in the Wells Fargo coach. I don't think he got that.
Good.
That was very cool.
That's cool.
And it's really good to see positive stories intertwined with the bad stories. But I praise him.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to me in historical rejection, I'm going to get in trouble. Warning. In historical rejection to LGBT, you have Black community and church especially. You have evangelical and church in general. And you have country music. That's why NASCAR is such a difficult issue for us. So for Osborne to have come out in country music, he risked career because of rejection, to ride in this parade and probably the hundreds of thousands of views that him physically riding in the Nashville Pride Parade as Grand Marshal has probably significant effect of his career. And he does what more people in Black community, straight community need to do, and more people in evangelical and religious community need to do, to stand up against hate and say, I'm willing to stand up even at risk of consequence. And that's what Osborne did in Nashville over the weekend.
Right. Well, it's admirable to say the least.
All right, Daniel, we're going to finish up the show now.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends. Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
And remember, if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Daniel Molloy, Glen Weinzimer, and Anthony Linzalone, we will be seeing you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure